Hey Cal fans, and welcome to the final regular season installment of the football film study here on California Golden Blogs. In this video, we're looking at some of my favorite offensive play calls from the UCLA game and at why they were especially successful against what the Bruins were running. I'll look at 4 of the best play calls in this video, but for more analysis of the Cal UCLA game, including a look at the Bears defense, check out my weekly live cast, which you can access via burke18.com. Let's start with the run game. Running back Chris Brown Jr. had his best game of the season in Pasadena, rushing for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns at 6.2 yards per carry, and he got some nice help from run game diversity and from a nice use of pulling linemen. To see this, let's start with this run. On this play, Cal has 2 tight ends to the right side of the formation. UCLA's in their base 3-4 personnel, and they've spun a safety down to the weak side of the formation away from the tight ends to be an 8th box defender. Cal only has 7 run blockers, and so these 8 defenders should be more than enough to stop the run. On this play, Cal's doing a few things that are interesting. First of all, this is a power play to the right. On a power run, the offensive line to the play side, or the right side in this diagram, will all block down, or back away from the side that the run's attacking, sealing off the left edge of the hole. The right edge of the hole then gets created by this wing tight end who kicks out the outside linebacker here. The last key element of this play is that the backside guard, the left guard in this case, is going to pull and lead through the hole that those play side defenders have created, blocking this inside linebacker here so that the running back can get downfield. This works pretty well on this play, and Brown ends up rushing for 17 yards against an 8-man box. So, why was this one of my favorite play calls? To understand this, let's jump to the other side of the ball and talk about how to defend plays like this. As we've seen, on this play, Cal's pulling their left guard through the hole and up to this inside linebacker. If you're that inside linebacker and you're defending a play like this, then there are basically 2 things that you can do. One option is to box the ball, taking on the blocker's outside shoulder, closing up that outside gap, and forcing the ball back inside. That's what the inside linebacker does on this play, and we can see that going on right here. Your other option is to spill the ball, taking on the blocker's inside shoulder and instead forcing the ball to go outside. This decision to either box or spill that block will depend entirely on how the run fit's structured and on where your help players are. If we look at this pre-snap image, we see that the inside linebacker here has 2 second-level help players inside to his right. This tells him that he should box the pulling guard, taking away the outside gap and forcing the running back to cut back to those help players on the inside. On this run, this obviously didn't work, and to understand why, we need to look at Cal's pre-snap motion. As the ball snapped, the Bears are motioning wide receiver Makai Polk across the formation from right to left. UCLA's in his own coverage, and so when Polk runs across, the cornerback that's lined up across from him won't run with him man-to-man. Instead, he'll bump into the box, while the safety on the other side of the formation will bump out with Polk. To put this in terms of the inside linebacker here and the run fits that I just discussed, this motion eliminates the safety as a help player to the inside and adds the cornerback as a new help player to the outside. Another factor here is that UCLA is blitzing this inside linebacker around the weak side edge. This is important because when he blitzes and when the safety widens out of the box with Polk's motion, it eliminates both of the help players to the right of this inside linebacker that we've been focusing on. This means that when he boxes the pulling guard and forces the running back to cut back to the inside, there's not going to be anybody there to make the tackle. Instead of doing this, our inside linebacker here needed to change up his run fit when Polk went in motion. As we've seen, Polk's motion brings the cornerback into the box as a new help player to the outside of the inside linebacker. This should have changed the structure of UCLA's run defense. With that cornerback sitting on the outside, the inside linebacker should have instead spilled this ball, taking on the pulling guard's inside shoulder and forcing the ball outside to the cornerback who would have been in position to clean up. In this way, Cal was able to use motion to change the structure of UCLA's run fit. The Bruins didn't adapt to this motion, and the result was that Brown was able to get 10 yards downfield without being touched before running over some defensive backs for an additional 7 yards to finish the run. Now, before we move on to the next play, just as a quick summary, part of the problem on this play was that UCLA was blitzing this weak side linebacker. When that guy scraped to the backside edge, it took him out of the run fit, leaving nobody left to play inside of the pulling left guard. With that in mind, let's check out this play with 1:17 to go in the third quarter. On this play, not only are the Bruins not blitzing this weak side linebacker, but they've actually shifted him over to the two tight end side of the formation, making sure that he'll be there to play inside of his partner at the other inside linebacker spot. Cal won't be able to run the same power play against this look, and so they're going to need a different way to get rid of that weak side linebacker. On this play, Cal's doing this by running something called a pin and pull zone play. On this kind of run, your play side blockers will be able to do one of two jobs. If they have a defender inside of their alignment, then they're going to block down on that defender and seal them off to the inside. Here, for example, we see that UCLA has put defenders inside of the right tackle and the tight end, and so those two blockers will come down on those defenders, pinning them to the inside and creating the left edge of the hole. If, on the other hand, there's not a defender lined up inside of you, then you're going to pull around the edge. On this play, the right guard doesn't have anybody lined up inside of him, and so he's going to pull around the edge to kick out this defensive back and create the right edge of the hole. As we've already seen, on this play the Bruins have shifted their weak side linebacker over to the play side here, and so they're definitely going to want to force the ball back inside to him. As we move the play forward, we see that this defensive back out here is boxing the block of the pulling right guard, setting an edge to the defense and forcing the ball back inside. In the same way, the strong side inside linebacker is going to fight to get outside of his tight end's block, boxing the ball back inside to his partner. This is all going to set up the critical block. Pin and pull plays like this technically belong to the zone family of runs, and so while all of the play side blockers are pinning and pulling according to the rules that I just laid out, the backside blockers are all zone blocking, meaning that they're stepping toward the play side and blocking whoever shows up. This means that the critical block on this play will actually come from the center here. He's zone blocking to the right, and so it's going to be his job to get up to that weak inside linebacker that UCLA has shifted over to the two tight ends. As we move this play forward, we see that he's successful at crossing that linebacker's face and sealing him off to the inside. This all means that when this defensive back and this inside linebacker box the ball and force it back to the inside, they will once again find that there's no defender there to make the tackle. Brown again has a massive lane, and he's able to get 19 yards downfield before anybody even touches him. One missed tackle later, and he's off for a 40-yard gain. The real key here, though, is that when UCLA shifted their linebackers over to the play side, Cal was able to run something other than the power play that they'd run before, going with a pin and pull zone play that allowed them to use their center's zone block to eliminate the weak side inside linebacker. This run game diversity gave their offensive line the tools that they needed to succeed and let them open up the same basic inside cutback lane against a variety of alignments from UCLA. Now, let's move to the passing game for this third play. This is going to be a long completion to running back Marcel Dancy, and the scheme here is really cool. On this play, the Bears are running a compressed formation, and so we can see all of their receiving threats brought in tight to the line of scrimmage here. UCLA is running cover 3, and so we can see all of their relevant defenders except for a free safety in the deep middle of the field. In cover 3, the cornerback up here is going to be a deep outside third defender, and so he'll have to run vertical with any receiver that threatens the sidelines. To the inside of him, the free safety is a deep middle third defender, and so he'll have to run with anybody who threatens that zone. On this play, Cal's running wide receiver Trayvon Clark down the seam. This route threatens both of those defenders vertically, and so Clark's going to be able to run off both of those defenders with his one route. Because UCLA's cornerback is a deep defender in this coverage, it's going to be up to the next defender inside of him to cover anything underneath and out to the sidelines. On this play, Cal's running their tight end on an out route, and so that player is going to have to widen out to the sidelines in order to cover this. So just to recap at this point, we've seen that Cal used a seam route by Clark to run off the cornerback and the deep middle safety, and an out route by this tight end to widen this underneath safety out to the sidelines. That's going to set up a critical one-on-one matchup between Dancy and this linebacker, who's the only guy who's left in a position to cover him, and that's going to be quite the mismatch. As we run the play forward, we see that linebacker trying to get hands on Dancy and collision him out of the seam, but he doesn't impact the route. Dancy's going to run right past him, and Garbers will hit him in that void in between the deep defenders who've been run off by Clark and the outside defender who's being held by the tight end's out route. This is just a great use of a compressed formation to generate an easy downfield completion for Garbers. Last but not least, let's look at one more play. Here, Cal isn't in a completely compressed formation, but they're still compressed at the top of the screen, and they're attacking UCLA's coverage in almost the exact same way. On this play, the Bruins have changed up their coverage to these compressed receivers, opting to go with cover 2 instead of cover 3. In this coverage, the cornerback on the edge out here will be responsible for defending the flat, and the safety up here will be responsible for deep routes down the seam. As we roll the play forward, we see that the Bears are running back Chris Brown Jr. into the flat to hold that cornerback wide and shallow. By attacking that cornerback in the flat, Cal's effectively preventing him from dropping into deep coverage, isolating the deep safety on any routes that happen to attack him. The Bears are then attacking that safety by running tight ends Gavin Reinwald and Colin Moore downfield, with Moore attacking the safety in the seam and Reinwald attacking the deep sidelines. This gives them a 2-on-1 matchup with a deep cover 2 safety, and so Garbers will simply read that safety and throw to whichever tight end he doesn't cover. On this play, he comes down inside with Moore, and so Garbers throws to Reinwald on the outside for an easy 22-yard completion. Alright, that's it for this video. If you want to learn more about the Cal-UCLA game or about Friday's Pac-12 championship, then check out my weekly live cast, which you can access via burke18.com. Otherwise, I'll be back here next week with my first look at our bowl opponent, whoever that happens to be, and I look forward to seeing you then. Go Bears!